Hello, my mathematical warriors. So today we're going to do adding and subtracting rational expressions part 2. You will recall in part 1, we threw the concept at you, and what we talked about was, okay, first thing we have to do is factor everything. Then we have to state our NPVs. Then we want to see if we can simplify each of the separate fractions at all. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But if you had a binomial on the top and the bottom of the same fraction, those would divide out and make your life a little easier, okay? This is not like multiplication where anything on the top could divide out with anything on the bottom, right? With addition, they'd have to be, or subtraction, they'd have to be on the same fraction in order to be able to simplify those out. Then the big thing with addition and subtraction is you need that common denominator. So once you've simplified everything as much as you can, you say, okay, what's my common denominator? And essentially your common denominator is one of every factor that you see put together. So then you have to create your equivalent fractions so that they have the common denominator. So if you need to add an x plus 5 on the bottom so that you've got that common denominator, and when I say add, I mean multiply in, right? I'm just saying throw that factor beside the other factors. If you need to throw in an x plus 5 on the bottom, you got to throw in an x plus 5 on the top as well in order to maintain that equivalency, okay? Today's lesson's not long. There's actually only 2 examples that I want to walk you through. But having a part 2 of this is really important to me because the addition and subtraction is harder than the multiplication and division. And I want to make sure you're giving yourself the time and the space to really feel good about this, okay? So let's try it. Here's our first question. We are going to take a look at 1 over a minus 3 plus 1 over a squared minus 9 minus 1 over a squared minus 2a minus 3. So the first step is going to be to factor everything. This guy's already good. This guy, I've got a difference of squares on the bottom, so that's going to factor into a plus 3 and a minus 3. And then over here, I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply together to give me negative 3, add together to give me negative 2. That would be a minus 3 and a plus 1. So here I am in total factored form. And so now the next thing I want to do is figure out my NPVs. So if I take a look at this guy here, a can't be 3. Here, a can't be negative 3. I already got a can't be 3. Okay, and over here I have a can't be negative 1. So I'm looking at 3, negative 3, and negative 1. Okay, so a can't be negative 3, comma, negative 1, comma, 3. Now I need a common denominator. Okay, so a common denominator is one of everything I've got, right? So I've got an a plus 3, I've got an a minus 3, and I've got an a plus 1. So each one of these is going to have all 3 of those. So in this first one, I have a minus 3. I'm going to need to add to that an a plus 3 and an a plus 1. So I'll multiply it on the bottom and on the top. Okay, on this fraction, I already have the a plus 3 and the a minus 3, but I don't have the a plus 1. So I'll have to throw an a plus 1 on here and up here. Okay, and then finally on this guy, I have the a minus 3 and the a plus 1. I don't have the a plus 3. So I'll throw an a plus 3 here and an a plus 3 here. Okay, that looks like this. Okay. So take note of what I did. I had 1 over a minus 3. I needed the a plus 3 and the a plus 1. So I multiplied it on the bottom and on the top so that those fractions are equivalent. In the second fraction, I needed that a plus 1. And then in the third fraction, I needed that a plus b. Okay, so now I'm ready. Sorry, a plus 3, not a plus b. So now I'm ready to do the multiplication. Oh, this one is kind of meaningless now. But I've got a plus 3 times a plus 1, so I'll multiply all that out. A times 1, 3 times a, and 3 times 1. Over here, I'll get 1 plus a. I want to watch this guy. This is going to end up being negative a and a negative 3. Be careful of that. That negative will apply to both of those terms. Okay. So when I do that, I end up with this. Let me clear that ink for you. So I've got that a squared plus 4a plus 3. That was that first two binomials being multiplied together, plus a plus 1. That was the second fraction. And then minus a and minus 3 was the subtraction sign distributed into the third fraction. Okay, so now I'm going to clean this up. I've got a squared, nothing else to combine with that guy. I've got 4a plus a minus a. That'll leave me with 4a. And 3 plus 1 minus 3 will leave me with 1. So I've got a squared plus 4a plus 1. I think to myself, could I factor that? Could I find two numbers that multiply together to give me 1 and add together to give me 4? No. So that's it. Okay, this is in simplest form. Beautiful. Okay. All right, and then the last example we're going to do together. I've shown you stuff like this before. This is called a complex fraction, where you have fractions on the top or on the bottom of another fraction. We're going to write this left to right as a division statement, okay, and make our lives a little easier. So I've got 1 over x plus 1 divided by 1 minus 1 over x, okay? So now I need a common denominator. Here, my common denominator is going to be x, so this will be x over x. So overall, I'm going to have 1 plus x all over x. Same thing here, I'm going to call that 1 x over x, so I have a common denominator. That'll be x minus 1 all over x. Okay, let's talk about MPVs. X can't be 0, okay? But the other guy to look at for an MPV is this guy. If x was 1, I would end up with 1 minus 1, right? Because 1 over 1 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So that's another way that I would end up with a 0 in this question that I don't want. So x actually can't be 0, and it can't be 1. Okay, 0 and 1. And now I have those common denominators that I was talking about just a few seconds earlier. Okay, so now when we divide fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. So that's going to be 1 plus x over x times x over x minus 1. My x's will now divide each other out, this guy and this guy. And so I'm left with 1 plus x over x minus 1. 1 plus x over x minus 1. Okay, it's that easy. I hope it's starting to feel easy for you. I hope it's starting to make sense. I wanted to give you this time to just have a chance to do some more practice, have a chance to really solidify this in your head. Of all the mathematical operations we do, multiplication and division are a little easier, addition and subtraction are a little harder, okay? After this, we're moving into rational equations and applications, but I want to kind of pause here and make sure you guys have some time to really, really practice the addition and subtraction portion of this, okay? So your homework is listed. Please make sure you go through it very, very carefully. And as always, if you have any questions, please connect with me. You got this. Take care, guys.